Hello Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for Choujin X Chapter 28. When we last left our heroes, the gang were still training on the Beast Isles, with Sato and Shadow and Hachimaki is the other one, who we learned was a BDSM person, so random thing in the manga. But anyway, the gang continued working on honing their powers, getting stronger and stronger, and more like, in Tokio's case, more sort of specific with his powers, more refined, I suppose. And then one night, I think this is before there's like a week-long time skip where Sato leaves. I think it's right before we get to that point. We learn a bit about Simon's backstory, how he gets his powers through tattoos imbued with his family's blood, and so the powers sort of passed down like that. And they were heroes in the war against Guelta. But then someone wearing 4 of the pharmacist's no masks, killed the entire Kagemura clan except for Simon. And so Simon has a lot of, like, revenge feelings against the pharmacist in particular, perhaps, or maybe doesn't know exactly who is responsible. But anyway, he then comes across, Tokio training his flight, and they have, Tokio gets this nice little moment of, like, why he is training because he protected a friend with his powers. It was a really sweet moment. And Azuma was trying to do some investigation as to his own powers, and while doing that, he ran into Chandra's ally, Yubiko, because that whole trio, her and the other guy and Chandra, have made it to the island. That's where we left off. So with that said, let's dive right on into Chapter 28. We open on the Beast Isles, isolated islands and former battleground. And then we have this, it's just sort of a, like the little One Piece name boxes we get. And then we close up on the fruit. Sour fruit, obtainable on the Beast Isles. And we see Tokio still training with Simon now. Tokio trying to fly. He jumps off a cliff, we see the sand rushing below him, and he hits the sand. Simon Kagemura tagging along. I love that Simon face. Like, I have my doubts about Yamato Mori as a general organization, and Simon in particular is very much on board with all the things that make me uncomfortable about Yamato Mori. But that face is just so funny. Just the, like, really? You still failed? And then they go to Google, the Google parody, the amazing search engine, given the same sort of focus as all the other things, as they Google bird wing anatomy. And so they try, like, getting the wings more realistic, and Simon gives us a little, like, thumbs up. It's all, like, it's weird how much this page is working to, like, humanize Simon, a character who, even with the tragic backstory we learned last time, I still wasn't that big a fan of. But, like, the sort of gazing up at the wing and the slight thumbs up is so good. And then we see Tokio flying again, now with, like, white wings. They're not definitely not the sort of, like, patchwork wings we saw at the start of the chapter. I didn't really focus in on Tokio's wings there, but they did not really look like wings. They looked like a feather cape behind him. And these new wings certainly are not the, like, hand wings from the end of his fight with Azuma. They look like genuine wings, but, like, more like doves than vultures, I'd say. Either way, it doesn't quite... He sort of glides for a little bit, but he still does hit the ground. And Tokio looks back, I almost, and Simon picks up, glided! And they both high-five. Once again, just these 4 pages have done more to, like, endear me to Simon as a character than the entire rest of the series. I don't know if it's just, like, now that Ishida has given us the backstory, he's, like, willing to make Simon more human, but, like, it definitely is working here. Like, this thumbs up, as, like, Tokio is still, like, nosebleeding, is just really cute. And then he, like, pushes back. Simon suddenly remembers his sort of, like, stoic attitude. We'll keep going until you get the hang of it. But Tokio, seeing, like, another side of Simon, just nods. Okay. And then sometime later, they're done. We can tell they're done practicing because Tokio's wearing a shirt again. Kurohara, are you serious about becoming a keeper? Are we going to go... Because for a while now, we've been just sort of, like, ignoring this sort of uncomfortable dark side of some of the keeperhood stuff we've seen. I'm curious if this is a scene to, like, bring that back. You take training seriously, but It's like you're being led around by other people. You have to be fully devoted to become a keeper. It's a position where you could lose your life. And I'm once again thinking of that bit with the narrator focusing on Tokio, saying some people are just not cut out to be keepers, which again, I'm not so sure is a bad thing. And Tokio comments, "Oh, I've never applied myself fully to anything before. So when I see people who are passionate or really devoting themselves to something, I get jealous. Ellie's motivations are simple. Azuma's acting based on his convictions. Kagomura, you're the same age as me, and even you're using your ability to its fullest. And you're cool because you know so much." Though, he mentions why, Ellie she needs money for her family and for her dreams. Azuma, I think, is sort of... I forget if we really laid out exactly what's going on with Azuma. Also, Azuma, I feel like Tokio does not understand Azuma as well as he thinks he does. That's sort of one of the big things that was, especially pre-Dam fight, splitting the two of them apart. But again, there still is that weird scene with Azuma and the pharmacist that could be... that could change the way that we should be viewing how Azuma is acting. I don't know where it's going with that. I know that tangent started with Tokio ignoring the Simon backstory he learned, and I'm not sure how those two concepts were meant to connect. But whatever, we're moving on. Simon's a little taken aback at being called cool, but Tokio goes on. "But me, I have no sense of self. It's embarrassing." And I like the dropout shirt that he's wearing. It's a little on the nose, but it is the sort of sense of who is he? "But now I feel like I found a purpose. If something bad happens with Azuma, I want to be a Choujin who can stop him. So I want to learn more about myself. I want to know more about my power." I'm still not sure that's really a grand purpose. I'm still not sure that is having a sense of self. Because that is a goal that is fully wrapped up in being Azuma's, shield or something. I'm not sure that's a healthy stance for Tokio. And Simon seems to agree. "I don't mean to discourage you, but living shackled to another person like that is limiting. Why don't you try living for your own aspirations? If you don't, I think eventually you'll get embarrassed by yourself again." Which is it's a good point. I think Simon might see this as find your own reasons to be a keeper. I'm, again, very, very skeptical of the idea that Tokio will decide he wants to be a keeper. If you don't, I think eventually you get embarrassed by yourself again. And Tokio just takes that in. But and he's a little upset at, he's given Simon what his goal for the moment is, and it's been rejected. I finally found my... and Simon realizes he's maybe gone too far and tells him, "Never mind. Forget it. That was my..." The also interesting thing is that we've learned that... I see the Choujin sense in the next panel. I'll get to that in a sec. But, this interesting parallel between Tokio and Simon here is that isn't revenge, which, as we learned last time, is Simon's motivation for being a keeper. Is that not also, as Simon put it on page 7, living shackled to another person or another group of people? I'm curious, especially that "never mind, forget it, that was that's cut off by the Choujin sense. If what he's getting at is that was my own problem. My revenge is me living for other people. And on some level he understands that, but he also can't really let that revenge go. Maybe? I don't know. Lots to think about with Simon. And then they feel the Choujin sense, a call. And we see Azuma getting pummeled by Yubiko, who has... So last time it looked like there was something spawning a scarf around her. And I can't really see anything humanoid of Yubiko. She's now just a collection of arms pummeling into... Or all we can see is a collection of arms pummeling into Azuma. And Azuma breaks free of them. We see Yubiko. It looks like it's more of a thing she spawned. There's an octopus with arms instead of tentacles that are beating up on Azuma. But he backs away and recognizes an enemy, and transforms into his Choujin form. And we see this octopus thing is on Yubiko's shoulder. For a second I thought it was like separated, but it's on there, and it's got this sort of claw around it. I'm trying to think what that reminds me of. Because it definitely reminds me of something. Maybe it's like, you know, the bit in Naruto where it's that right before Naruto has his final fight with Gaara. I think is it Sakura who's like pinned to the tree by the giant Shikaku hand. It reminds me of that. It's either Sakura or Sasuke, I forget which. It's been a long time. But anyway, she's got that and the bag of arms. It looks less like an octopus now than like a tumor almost. And Azuma dashes past her, seemingly making a cut. Because he's been able to create his blade. And decapitates her. But of course, the Choujin doesn't matter much. As she just comments, quick. And as her head falls off, she grins at Azuma. You don't hesitate, do ya? And... Okay, so... I'm glad we're getting back to some of just, like, the utter batshit imagery. I feel like the past, like, 3 or 4... Like, since the Azuma... Of course, there hasn't really been a big fight since the fight with Azuma. But it's been a little while, since, like, June or so, since we've really gotten to see some just absolute batshit imagery. So I'm gonna try to describe this. So Yubiko's head falls off, and out of the stump, so there's a good, like, tentacle bit, and then the tentacle bit stops and becomes a headless naked woman. And Azuma asked the right question there. What is that? And the body construct, I'll call it, kicks him in the face and then is, like, drawn back by the tentacle. And nice reflexes. This is Yubiko's head is respawned. Alright, let's do this. Yubiko, mandala body Choujin. A mandala is something in Asian culture. I'm not really sure what exactly. A geometric configuration of symbols. Okay. In various spiritual traditions, this is just the Wikipedia intro, mandalas, not sure how it's pronounced, may be employed for focusing attention of practitioners and adepts as a spiritual guidance tool for establishing a sacred space and as an aid to meditation and trance induction. So the basic concept is sort of her body as this sort of abstract configuration of I guess the body, symbols here meaning like the body parts acting as the symbols, maybe? And then I'm wondering if that used in meditation kind of will tie in a later point with her powers. I don't know. But right now, she does not seem like the meditative type. The whole, like, devil grin as all these limbs are spawning out of her. It's a really cool look. Once again, having your superhumans have such unique powers was absolutely the right call in Choujin X. Like, just, not to harp on one of my biggest problems with Ghoul, but, like, comparing this to the Kaganes, which got so hard to follow and kind of generic, after not that long, is just, like, it's so cool. It's just a cool image, that I feel like the Kaganes only rarely were able to accomplish. Because this is just, like, the arms sprouting everywhere, the leg, she having like 5 legs, whatever the mass is at her back is just cool. A battle to the death. I know you like those, right? She grins, and Azuma just thinks, this seems bad. And Tokio and Simon go to help out. Simon thinks, this feeling, it's a battle? There are 2 Choujin. And Tokio tells Tokio tells Simon, it's Azuma, he's fighting. And Simon's shocked, Higashi, how can you tell? I don't know. You don't? Which is it then? I don't know how I know. Which I want to go back to the end of last chapter, which I sort of not bring up in my recap, where Yubiko questioned if Azuma was the beast of foresight. And, like, Azuma isn't much of a beast Choujin, but Tokio is. And so maybe that is another part of Tokio's powers? Like, his powers became bird-like because he had sort of the vulture imagery that was so central to his worldview, but his actual nature is the foresight thing? I don't know, because just given the way last chapter ended, Tokio can weirdly predict, even above more established Choujin, what Choujin is fighting right now doesn't feel like a random thing to bring up. And Simon questions, do you have a perception ability? Who's the other one? I don't know. Alright. Still, though. And then, we see a suited arm. As Simon notes in the last second, another Choujin. And a blast of smoke arrives. Simon grabs Tokio. Kurohara! And they barely get out of the way of Chandra's smoke attack. Whoa! Ah! And Simon recognizes him. Why is he? And then calls out to him, Chandra Hume. Because, Chandra's here, not with Ellie, who you would think would be sort of more of his, fated enemy. Though Ellie is somewhere on the island. But first he's with Tokio and Simon. And Chandra recognizes him. Now what do we have here? A descendant of the Kagamora clan. We meet again. Not such a crybaby now, Okay, so I guess that means Chandra was there the night of the Kagamora massacre? Is that what that's getting at? Because all we saw was, the four-faced No-Mask, who I assume is the pharmacist, but maybe isn't. Tokyo does not seem to recognize him, as he can only think, Chandra Hume? Smoke? The same power as Ellie? Which doesn't feel like he... Is Tokyo aware of how Ellie got her powers? If so, this is him realizing this is Ellie's foe. But Chandra goes on, what a wonderful island. Beautiful scenery, and thick with the scent of dry, smoky death. It's as though I can feel the great battle even now. Let's invite Sandek to come join us. I'll offer up one of your charred corpses to him. I think the great battle there is referring to the historical Guelta repulsion, which does beg the question, is the pharmacist in his organization descended from Guelta? I don't know. Another question to consider. Again, we know so little about a lot of the things in this world. But anyway, continuing on. As Simon questions, you didn't come here just to toy with us. What do you want? And Chandra tells him, the Beast Choujin. And Tokyo assumes that's me? That Choujin is training at Yamato Mori, and should be on this island now. However, that Choujin belongs to our mother. So it would appear that the Beast of Foresight was referring to Tokyo. Okay. Actually, and he warps... Does he disintegrate into the smoke and then reemerge behind it or something? Right behind Tokyo and taps him on the head. You smell beast-like. And then I think this is the other guy whose name I already forgot, Hitori or something. I'm gonna see if I can go to last chapter real fast and remember his name. Hiroto Mori was his name. Which actually, I don't know if I noted that at the time, but that similarity to Yamato Mori is maybe something to keep in mind with Hiroto. I don't know. We'll see what goes on with that. Anyway, we cut to him. Doing a radio show, it feels like. Mic check 1 2. Mic check 1 2. We have clear skies today. Clear skies today and cloudy skies later. It is already midnight. The session will now be starting. I'm a little excited. Alright then, I'll leave the beast hunting to the other three. Oh. Other three? All we know about is Chandra and Yubiko. That means there might be someone else on the island. I'll leave my beast hunting to the other three, and offer up my voice to the slumbering casualties of the battle that took place here. Is he a necromancer? Yeah, apparently, because we see graveyards. I guess there was, on other parts of the island, huge graveyards dedicated to the battle. Interestingly, a lot of them have Christian crosses. And I noted that Saruha, I think, had, a nun's habit, which I found really interesting, given Yamato's Japanese influence. And then again, we have these crosses. All things to consider. As Hiroto calls out, come on! And we see skeletons start to rise from their grave. One of them has what looks like a more... I don't know what that... You see that, triangle thing on Shinto priests in anime, I think? I'm not sure what it represents, but it's more Japanese than the crosses. And the skeletons just crawl out of the ground. We finally get our chapter title, Chapter 28, Festivo, as we're introduced to Mori. Hiroto Mori, Death Growl Choujin, his power Infernal Concert. He can rock your soul so intensely with his voice that even the dead must dance. Which is really just controlling a bunch of corpses. He is maybe not quite a necromancer, but something of that sort. And that wakes up Ellie and Maiko. As Ellie rushes out of her bedroom. Who's the tone-deaf hooligan responsible for this? I'm gonna kill him! But Maiko tries to calm her down. It might be Mr. Shadow, Ellie. And they find Shadow and Hachimaki. And we continue that running gag from last chapter where she doesn't know Shadow's name. Oh, Mr. Sharapova, Miss Roja. And they both look back at her. Oda. And then they hear the clatter of the arriving skeletons. And they see they're surrounded. And Hachimaki just asked, did someone arrange for a haunted house? And Ellie is panicking. Skeletons! Momoma! What's going on? As Shadow tells them, this doesn't look good. Everyone keep close to me. Maiko is going on the attack. Ellie, incoming! And Ellie ducks so the Maiko can kick a skeleton in half. Oh, I feel kind of bad doing that. This power. And they also sort of like recognize this Choujin power. As the skeletons start to like bite them. We see a couple of like latched onto Shadow. One of them grabs Ellie and like gnawing on her cheek. Is this a dream? Am I asleep? Gosh darn it, cut it out! And then someone, I'm assuming Shadow or Hachimaki, sees Hiroto. He's an infamous Choujin he's an infamous Choujin from Nagamata on the wanted list. Hiroto Mori. And Ellie like flies up to fight him. Oda, he'll resort to anything to achieve his goals, even using corpses. And Ellie tells the group, that guy makes me sick. I guess just that little information is enough to like form a grudge. And with her smoke, she like beats up a bunch of, burns a bunch of the skeletons. Hachimaki announces, yeah, burn them to a crisp. Though this is sacrilegious. And Maiko tells her, good going, Ellie. And Ellie says to herself, so, what exactly is his goal here? And she starts to move towards Mori. As Mori tells her, hey, listen up. And Ellie calls back, yeah, I'm listening. Acoustic blade voice edge. And with his voice, he is able to it's not really, doesn't seem like it's acting like a blade, but it knocks Ellie out of the sky. Wah! So he wasn't listening to me at all. And as she falls, Shadow runs over to grab her, and tells her, careful. Mr. Sharapova, his tone deafness literally cuts through the air. And Shadow, little like, get my name right. We see though that Ellie did not cut through even a good number of the skeletons. There's still a whole bunch of them surrounding them. As Hiroto goes on, thanks for listening. Now for my next song, Graveyard. And he sings again, and like blasts Ellie away from Shadow. Sorry, Oda. Steps of Darkness. Oh no, that's more, I think, Shadow knocking Ellie away so he can use his attack. Hiroto Mori, I know not why you attack us, but this meeting will be our last. And Shadow will manifest behind him out of darkness. Mori, that's not music. Real music is much more enriching than that. And he like chops through him with his hand. Karate chop of darkness. This is the true power of darkness. Seemingly defeating Mori there. Because there's a giant hole in his gut. I have a feeling it won't actually work though. Wow, Mr. Chardonnay! And Mori just lies there. And we hear encore. Encore. And oh right, because of Rays. Rays won't I forgot about Rays for a minute. I love, though, the musical notes actually emanating from the wound. Okay. Encore. Thank you. And now for my encore. And we see Rays. As Shadow just grimaces, nobody asked for one. To be continued. Okay. So, I was not expecting the sudden, like, turn into just really goofy action there. Like, I don't mind it. I think there's a lot of, like, especially with it being the start of the Halloween season, to just sort of lean on some goofiness for a hot minute, because, like, Ellie, Maiko, and the teachers get, like, caught up in a fight with an army of skeletons and a tone-deaf singer is just a kind of a funny concept. And I really enjoy it. I feel like it's definitely like the busiest part of the chapter. There's just a lot going on every page. And I feel like at times just the sort of, it's this thing where stopping to sort of have everyone make fun of Mori kind of cuts into the pacing a little bit. Like a little bit of, like a few of the God is singing is so terrible did kind of, like, I felt like it kind of messed with the pace ever so slightly. But it's a goofy little fight. I'm curious how it will continue, because it's definitely not over, thanks to the power of Rays. But we'll see. We'll see what all leads to that. It's interesting that, like Ishida holds off on the title until then. I always find it interesting when things just, like, it's one thing to save your title for the very end of a chapter, but to just throw it in 2/3 of the way through it's a very particular choice. That being said, there's a lot more good stuff going on here, besides that battle. I really like the Simon and Tokio scene before everything goes to hell, that really sort of calls to question a lot about both of their positions right now. That, like, I think Simon correctly calls out that Tokyo's sort of worldview here is not the healthiest. That, like, chaining yourself to protecting one person is not super healthy. Especially when Tokyo says, I have no sense of self, and then he's like, now my sense of self is to protect Azuma. That's not super healthy. And I if I had more time, and I had time to sit here and, like, not say anything for a while, I kind of want to take that in conversation with some of the earlier, all of the Tokyo Azuma drama during the dam fight, about, like, the way that Tokyo has always sort of seen himself as being beneath Azuma, and Azuma believed that was Tokyo holding back on him, and so he wanted Tokyo to fight him full on, and now Tokyo is seemingly acknowledging that, and just sort of accepting it. They're like, yeah, I have to be the one who's better than Azuma. And I don't know, it still doesn't quite feel like they're in a super healthy mental state right now. Like, there's just something that's not right with how they see each other. I think that they do need a separation. That something happening to force them to grow up, like, that Tokyo growing for Azuma's sake and Azuma growing for Tokyo's sake is sort of leading them into a kind of codependence, I guess. So hopefully they'll be able to break free of that at some point, though that all remains to be seen, of course. Because they can't really, and that also, I like how it still raises questions about Simon. As Simon, I think, on some level, recognizes his revenge as, like, as a very different flavor, but still similar to what Tokyo's problem is, which I find to be a very interesting plot beat there. And then the fight breaks out. Out of the three we see, I think Yubiko's powers are, like, the most fun. They're just really funky. Like, the constantly sprouting limbs. There's a nice little bit of body horror here that I think works really well. Like, especially the bit where, like, the whole body spawns out of her neck is so cool and so creepy. And I also appreciate, like, it would be not super difficult to, like, make that a horny bit. And this might be small praise, but I'm glad that it's not a horny bit. And then, of course, the image of her with, like, the body spawning behind her is so cool. And then there's Chandra, who definitely appears to be the leader of this whole group. And he's already found Tokyo. He's already found his target. I don't know. I'm curious if we, like... I certainly don't think that this is going to be, like, the last time. This isn't going to be, like, Chandra's finale arc or something. He's far too important a character to die so early. And I especially don't think he's going to die without Ellie being involved. Just, like, the way that even with Chandra's few appearances, the two of them have been kind of tied together. Is like, yeah, we're not doing much. You know, Ellie has to be caught up in Chandra's defeat. But I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I'm considering whether or not I think it's likely that Tokio gets kidnapped here again. Because, like, that was already sort of the conceit of the last arc, is the gang has to go rescue Tokio. And then a bunch of other things happen as a result of that, but still. And so it'd be interesting if, I'm curious if Ishida's going to go for that route again, or if they're going to repel Chandra for a little bit. I don't know. I'm also curious if Ishida is going to, like, somehow have Ellie leave the Hiroto fight and come fight Chandra, even just to, like, see that her arch nemesis is here. I don't know. But all in all, this does a lot to, like, kickstart the real action in this arc. We had a real fun Tokio and Simon scene, or whole sequence there, and then it's just some really fun action with our three villains, and Hiroto telling us there is a fourth around. Leave the beast hunting to the other three. Must mean there's someone else here. Or it's a translation error, I don't know, but I suspect it's not, because, you know, Shueisha, Manga Plus tends to be very professional with their translations. So, I don't know. So there's someone else here, and every single character is so far occupied. So that wild card could fuck things up real bad. But for now, we'll wait and see, because what we get here are three real fun fights. Even if the Mori fight is fun, but, like, it's also a little weirdly paced. I don't know. I don't quite know what bothers me about it, but there's just something about it that's a little tempo messy. I don't know. Which maybe, given the whole point is that Hiroto is a bad singer, the fact that the tempo of the fight feels slightly off might be kind of the point in a roundabout sort of way, but I just don't know. So, all in all, a fun chapter. I've missed Choujin this past month, and I'm hoping we get more sooner rather than later, because it always is just a real fun chapter, and I just can't wait to see what comes next. So with that said, I'm going to leave this video off here. Hope you'll enjoy the chapter and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe, or, you know, do whatever makes you happy, you know? And as always, your life is your own, okay? Bye!